Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Dark Souls 2. Let's say hello to Benhart of Jugo. It's been a little while, actually.
Oh, well met, friend. Good to see you well. Yes, very good indeed. I journeyed from the distant east to perfect my swordsmanship. The legend has it that powerful beings slumber in this land. This sword has been in my family for generations, and only a real man can wield it true. I may face any man or beast, but none shall be a match for my sword. This land is a right mess, eh? King's gone. The people have a mad glint in their eyes. The land itself is overrun by terrible beasts. No better place to test my sword, eh? This land is no better.
Well, we learn a little bit more about Benhart from that conversation. Most telling of which is that he legitimately came to Drangleic of his own free will. He does not appear to be undead at all. He just came because he heard that there was some shit going down, and that was sort of his thing. So good on him. The Rampart archers have now upgraded from crossbows to great bows, so it's really in your best interest to take on anything you can within the safe cover of walls. They're still shooting at us, as you can hear those basically giant flying spears just crumble against the walls. It's kind of terrifying. It's difficult to see from down here, but not only is that door locked, those are Alonne knights. Alonne knight captains, actually. I don't really know what they're doing in Castle Drangleic. Maybe they came seeking the king too and just decided to set up shop. Got bored without anything to shoot. Since the other way is a dead end, it's time to explore this avenue. This looks like some sort of elevator mechanism, but the lever does not appear to be working here. And the door leading out is locked. The only way left is up this ladder. It's a really long ladder. It's probably the longest ladder in the game. Almost there. Okay, is anybody looking? Okay, good. Coast is clear. I'm garbage. Let's move on. This room is a little bit infamous. It's a bit like the giant stone soldier room from before, except this time there's thankfully no ruin sentinels. But on the other hand, you have much less room to maneuver, no clear avenue of escape, and there's more soldiers at one time. You have to be very careful to proceed here so you don't get overwhelmed. I recommend just taking it slow, sticking to one side of the room, and if you can, using a powerful strike weapon to take them out quickly before they fully resurrect. Now, of course, the ultimate goal of this room is to feed a soul into the golem statue. peeking through the door, we can see that that has activated the elevator. So that's technically all we have to do here. Well, aside from find a way out. We can't go back the way we came because of those devious chest-high ledges. Now, for whatever reason, it's really easy to aggro all of these guys at once. And that's just awful. That's not a fight you can win, really. Since they're so resistant to fire and other magic damage, Firestorm is sort of out of the question. You might be able to work it with a greatsword, but... or maybe an ultra greatsword, but it would be really tough. The stone soldiers have just enough poise to make stun-locking them with heavy weapons difficult. Not impossible, but difficult. The treasure in this room is pretty good. The old Knight Hammer is a great hammer that has no scaling, so if you just want to upgrade it and then use it with the bare minimum stat requirements, then it's pretty strong. And Soul Greatsword is a powerful sorcery that does a quick AoE effect in front of you and does a ton of damage. Kaitha's Chime, if that's how it's pronounced, is a chime that only can cast hexes, but it has very good dark scaling. Alright, this room is even worse than the last one. We have to deal with these Alonne Knight archers. And they're positioned in such a way that each side of archers can cover the other. So finding a safe time to get in here and actually deal with the ones on the side is really hard. I would say that the best way to do it is probably to use ranged weapons. There's a semi-safe spot, like at the very end of each corridor. It's not hugely reliable, but there's not a huge danger of getting hit by the bolts from there. Like, you'll definitely get hit from the knights that are in your corridor, but it's unlikely for the knights across the way to be able to hit you from that angle. If you don't have a ranged weapon, or you're just not comfortable with using one, another strategy is to simply do this, and use these pillars for cover as much as you can. Given that you still need to move around the Alonne Knights, you will probably still get clocked once or twice, or several times in my case, but it's better than just trying to fight out in the open. And that chest was a spare copy of Firestorm. If we wanted to double up on that, we would have a lot of AoE damage to fall back on. Now, easily the best way to deal with these guys is using backstabs. But sometimes backstabs don't work, even when you're poking them right in the butt. I'm really good at this game. I have to admit that the backstab not working twice in a row really threw me for a loop there. After considerable trial and tribulation, we make it back here, and this time we'll do it right, I promise. They're so much easier to deal with than they fall over. Normally I would not recommend using any kind of fire damage on the Alonne Knights because their armor has such high fire resistance, but I wanted to make sure that he died quickly, and I knew that Great Combustion at least would do it. We get some fire great arrows from our trouble. I believe one of the knights also dropped their bow, which is personally galling, because I spent probably over an hour trying to get one of those in Iron Keep. Thankfully, the Agape Ring sort of made that not grindy and just a waste of time. Now we're going to use that great bow to help thin the herd here. Even without the Alonne Knights shooting at you, this is still a difficult encounter. The Primal Knight there, who is slowly waddling towards us, is very weak to getting sniped. and is just generally probably the least dangerous of the three enemies here. He's huge and he does a lot of damage, but he's so slow it's actually pretty unlikely that you'll get hit by him. Especially if you just put a bunch of iron spikes in his head. Now, this is a different variety of Cyan Knight. Instead of swords, these guys wield halberds. They're not especially different, but they have more attacking options with the halberd, and they are less prone to leaving themselves open. The shield is still problematic, so what you want to do is, as always, go for a backstab. Now, because these guys are sort of assigned to guard the door here, you can sort of draw them out one at a time. So this particular encounter is not hugely difficult, even if you aren't used to dealing with the halberds. The Cyan Halberd, by the way, is a weapon that can drop from them. And it's honestly pretty strong. It's very pokey as far as halberds go. More like a spear, except just heavier. Instead of like the vanilla halberd, which is more of a slashing weapon than anything. The Mastodon halberd is similar, though it requires a lot more strength to wield because, you know, elephant-sized halberd. There are a lot of doors in the castle that you just can't do anything with. It's kind of annoying, honestly. It makes the area feel very unfinished. Oh, hell. Alright, so 3 of these guys at once is pretty difficult. Fortunately, the guy at the end does not seem to have noticed us. So we can make a quick retreat more or less unimpeded. They're easier to fight down here because you tend to split them up if you do this. Here I have a lot more trouble getting backstabs to register at all, and in the end I just kind of kill him with normal attacks, completely by accident. I don't know why it's so finicky. Whatever the reason, it's also kind of annoying. With the herd thin like that, taking out the rest of them should not be difficult, especially when the backstabs work. That's kind of a big thing with dealing with these guys. If you don't have a heavy weapon that can stagger them reliably, then you definitely want to go for critical strikes, either with riposts or backstabs. I'm standing right behind him. Of course, that one works. This game is obnoxious. Be careful not to fall off in the great blue beyond there. Now, everything basically past the Stone Soldier Room was optional. So, if this area proves too difficult for you, as it very nearly did for me, embarrassingly enough, then you might just want to skip it. Your reward is an Estus Flash Shard, but certain factors make it not as valuable as it could be. It's still something you want to pick up, but don't feel bad if you just don't want to deal with this area. It's not the end of the world. We sort of unlock this pseudo-shortcut and just loop around back to where we started, where we first encountered the Alonne Knight shooting great bows at us. And we pop out right next to the bonfire. I'm going to go ahead and use that Estus Flash Shard, because the game gave me a pretty good opportunity to go back to Majula and restock. I think I'm probably just going to upgrade the shard before I leave.
However,
Yeah, not really enough souls to do anything of note here. Looks like that guy's trying to figure out what's up with the Santier's spear. Hopefully he does, or I'd feel kind of bad for him. Gonna make a few weapon adjustments here. Also admire the sword question mark that guy was wielding that looks more like a slab of rock. I guess every installment has to have some variation of the Keel Smasher sword or the Dragon Bone Smasher sword or whatever it's called from Demon Souls, the one that was by the Dragon God. This elevator takes forever. It's even stupider than the ladder. I'm sure if the game engine allowed for it, there would be like an enemy horde that we'd have to deal with before it got to the top. But as it stands, it's just a good place to spam emotes when you're bored. Hello there. Do you need some help? Hello? Unresponsive. Very unresponsive. Nothing we can do about that strange fellow. I'm assuming from the prompt that his name is the Embedded. So we can't help the girl that's trapped behind the cage. We can, however, pick up the key to the King's Passage and be on our way. We'll have to come back later when we have this key of the Embedded. A couple of other nice things up here, like a fire seed and strong magic shield. If you have the intelligence to cast it, strong magic shield is actually super helpful in the next area, so be sure to grab it. It's not like it's out of your way. I'm going to kill whoever designed this place. I wonder if it was Vendrick. Was he the architect as well as, like, the sponsor? I guess if it's Vendrick, maybe I should hold off on that. But if there's, like, a royal architect or something hiding around here, he is so getting the business end of the spear. Hooray for Skull. This ominous-looking room is home to a trap of sorts. You'll notice all these headless statues here. If you look closely, especially through, say, the sight of a bow or the binoculars, you may notice that some of these statues actually do have heads. For instance, this one here. The statues with heads are actually enemies, and they will come to life and attack you if you either pass them or attack them. Now, there's a couple ways to deal with this. One, you can just snipe them, or you can fight them fairly. You might think that you just always want to snipe them, but that's not necessarily the case. Because, as you saw just there, if you kill one of them while they're still inanimate, you will not get any souls or item drops from them. Now, this can be worth it, of course, because they're very dangerous to take on. These stone soldiers are wielding twin blades. They're aggressive, quick, and they have a lot of poise, and they do a lot of damage. I would definitely not recommend taking on more than one or two at a time. So even if you do want to farm them for their drops, such as the Stone Twin Blade, then it's really better to just weaken them at least first with a ranged attack and then let them come to you once they animate. Alonne Cyan Knight will guard the way here once those are down. He's just the sword-wielding variety, so it's not a huge deal to take him out. Never forget, if you're a spear user, that the strong attack on both the Silver-Black, the Partisan, and the normal spear do striking damage. I forget this myself an awful lot, to be honest. A lot of the time, just finding an opening to do that where it's safe can be difficult, but it's very useful against these heavily armored stone guys. Here to help us out is Benhart of Jugo. I don't believe this sign will appear unless you talk to him fully in the bonfire area. Now, last time we fought with Mr. Jugo, he didn't really acquit himself well because the fight was over before it really began. Now, if you will excuse that transition and the implied screw-up I had in this fight, there was a bit of an incident with Benhart dying and a homeward bone failing. This is the Mirror Knight. And this is also Benhart of Jugo. He attacks with his what appears to be the Moonlight Greatsword, a bit of a From Software standby weapon. It's been in a lot of their games. Benhart does a lot more damage than Lucatiel does, but he's also a bit more fragile. He's a bit more proactive about attacking. But even that considered, he's still pretty strong, just in terms of taking hits. The Mirror Knight, however, is even stronger. Along with just the general sword combos that hurt a lot, and are sort of deceptively difficult to dodge because he has a lot of variety to his swings. There's also his lightning attacks and his special maneuver. When he gets into this position, he'll temporarily gain increased defense, and he will summon what appears to be a Black Phantom. This is just an NPC, and he will always summon... Excuse me! He will always summon the same kind of NPC. Except much later on in Newer Game Plus cycles, then something special can happen. But basically, you want to get rid of this guy as soon as possible. Having a summon of any sort helps here, so they can either take care of the summon that the Mirror Knight calls forth, or so that they can keep the Mirror Knight himself busy. This can be a bit of a difficult fight. His lightning strikes especially can be difficult to avoid because there's several varieties of them. The one that hits all around him in basically 360 degrees is probably the most troublesome. Fortunately, with a little bit of help and a lot of poking, we prevail. And with another fight under his belt, we're one more step closer to completing Benhart's questline. Next time we see him, we'll have another chat. Though, honestly, who knows when that will be. He sort of moves around pretty randomly. And again, so did Lucatiel. That chest holds some useful stuff, as well as Soul Boat, a really bad sorcery that I've never found a use for ever. It's sort of a take on a sorcery from Dark Souls 1 that you got from, I believe, fully completing Big Hat Logan's questline, where it gave you a powerful laser beam that was sort of slow, but it had 20 uses and it did a lot of damage. It's more or less the same now, except it has like 2 uses, so I'm not really sure what the point is. String plus 2, however, is going to be very handy in this upcoming area. Things have taken a turn for the Arboreal here. Welcome to the Shrine of Amana. This area is a little bit infamous. It also has some music to it. We'll find out why it is so notable next time, but for now, let's take a break and listen to some nice singing. I'll see you then.